But first I want to welcome Susan Rice. She's Senior Foreign Policy Advisor to presidential candidate Barack Obama. She's former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and former Senior Director for African Affairs at the National Security Council. She's currently on leave from the Brookings Institution, where she's a Senior Fellow in the Foreign Policy Studies program. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you again, Jim.
We've had you on the show before, and we've talked about a range of issues affecting Barack Obama, affecting the campaign, and there's one that sort of stays with me. I don't know if you saw the memos that were printed in The Atlantic, the various internal memos from the Clinton campaign that were really quite intriguing, certainly about the problems within the campaign, but a couple of them that were advisories to the candidate as to how she should run the campaign really stuck in my craw. They were from Penn, telling her that you should focus on being an American, on being from Middle America, and point out the difference between you and your opponent, that you're like average Americans and he's not. I've been seeing that play out in the McCain campaign recently, and it appears that what started during the primaries is going to continue on through the fall, an effort to portray Barack Obama as different than us, not like us, out of the mainstream. How does that affect you, somebody who's worked with him, knows him, is close to the campaign, and how do you deal with that? Just even on a personal level.
Well, Jim, first of all, I think it's important to point out that the Clinton team had the wisdom to reject Mark Penn's advice on that point and didn't try to exacerbate concerns about Senator Obama's patriotism or Americanism. But it seems that the McCain campaign may be going in a different direction. And frankly, what we're beginning to see out of the McCain campaign is straight out of the Karl Rove playbook. It's the politics of division and fear. But I don't think it's going to work this time, Jim, because the American people know that Barack Obama, in fact, embodies the American dream. He is the son of a white woman from Middle America in Kansas. He was raised by his grandparents and a single mother. He is also the son of an immigrant from Kenya who came to the United States to be educated and to benefit from the American dream. That's who all of us are in one form or another. And that's a very American story. Barack Obama was a kid who came up from modest means, got scholarships to go to school, and through hard work and skill has done very well. That's what we believe in, and so I think this effort to distort who he is and to create fear that he is somehow different is, first of all, counterfactual, and secondly, the American people, I think, are much more concerned about the real issues that are affecting them on a daily basis: housing crisis, the economy, jobs, the price of gasoline, the war in Iraq. These are issues that the American people care about, and they want a leader who will do what is necessary to extricate ourselves from the mess of the Bush years.
Last week we had a couple of the ads that have been being played here. The One was one, and the celebrity ad was another, that the McCain people obviously spent a lot of time working on. I thought, naive guy that I am, that a matchup between John McCain and Barack Obama would present the first ever real substantive presidential campaign where you had two guys who had the ability to reach to the center and conduct a campaign on a civil basis. But I see it turning in a different direction. And I'm wondering if you get beyond that, if that becomes the defining characteristic of this campaign. Joe Lieberman saying yesterday that this is a contest between two candidates, one who puts the country first and the other who does not. That's tough stuff.
It's a disgraceful comment. But, Jim, as I said, I really don't think that the American people have an appetite for those politics of division and fear. It's left us divided as a people. It's led to gridlock and no results in Washington. It's led to the sort of lobbying influence that we see manifest in the McCain campaign. it's not working for the American people at a time of real economic crisis, at a time when our national security is threatened in many different ways, and we've had 8 years of failed Bush policies that John McCain has not only been a champion of, but wants to intensify in a third Bush term. The American people aren't going to go for that, and Barack Obama clearly represents a clean break from the Bush years, a bringing together of our country and our people in a fashion so that we can solve these problems. He's the antithesis of divisiveness and fear. He's about what we can accomplish when we come together as Americans, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of whether you're an immigrant, a native, or African American like myself and a product of slavery. We're all Americans, and we all have a real stake in tackling these problems together. I think the American people will get that, and I think, if I can make one more point on this, John McCain, for many years, had distinguished himself as somebody who stood apart from the politics of fear, who hadn't bought into the Karl Rove playbook, who was willing to reach across the aisle. Well, now when his candidacy is on the line, he's shown himself to be just like all the worst of the Rovian Republicans. And I think that's going to be very troubling to the American people who had expected and hoped for more and expected the kind of substantive discussion and debate that Barack Obama is intent upon having and that John McCain doesn't want to have and would rather talk about Paris Hilton and Britney Spears.
I might add to viewers that we invited someone from the McCain campaign for the last 3 weeks to come on the show and talk about the senator's foreign policy and his overall approach to the campaign, and they have not yet sent us anyone. I want to talk about Georgia, if we can. There have been a number of writers who've commented on the differences between the two campaigns. Somebody called it a 3 a.m. moment. And said it was very revealing, the initial comments. Actually, it was humorous in one regard. Somebody described McCain as like the first Bush administration, the first term of this president, sort of the moral clarity of neoconservatism. And somebody described Barack Obama's position as like the newly discovered penchant for diplomacy of the second Bush administration.
I'm not sure I
well,
would embrace either one of those.
There really were two distinct approaches here. Behind some of the rhetoric, there were some different approaches. What do you see as the fundamental difference between how the two candidates have approached the crisis in Georgia?
Well, I think there was some apparent difference at the outset when we were still receiving information on how the situation was unfolding. It was unclear how it was precipitated, and the facts were not all certain. At that point, John McCain came out without a clear sense of the situation on the ground, and he shot very quickly from the hip. His statement was aggressive and belligerent, and indeed it suggested a degree of moral clarity that frankly wasn't yet apparent. And Senator Obama and indeed the Bush administration and all of our NATO allies issued more tempered and measured statements calling on both sides to cease firing and to pursue this problem through political means. As soon as it became clear that this was indeed a situation of Russian aggression and Russia invading the sovereign nation of Georgia and using overwhelming force, Barack Obama, in light of the facts on the ground, has made subsequent statements condemning that aggression, being very clear about his support for Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity, demanding a ceasefire, demanding that Russian forces be replaced by truly neutral and international peacekeepers and monitors, and insisting, as he has for many, many months, because he's been talking about this issue since April, that we stand by Georgia and its people, provide humanitarian and reconstruction assistance, and very importantly, stand by our commitment, which is Barack Obama's commitment, to see Georgia find a path towards NATO membership through a membership action plan, which he has long supported. So Russia is way out of line, and its approach to this situation is absolutely unacceptable and intolerable. And the international community, and the United States in particular, needs to be involved actively at a high level with diplomacy and work with our NATO allies.
Would you kick them out of the G8?
Well, John McCain would have kicked Russia out of the G8 already. And I can assure you,
Jim, he's actually using the term G7.
I can assure you, Jim, that if Russia had been kicked out of the G8, its behavior would be no better than it is today.